Hello and thanks for joining this video demonstration. Today we're going to be using Trimble Business Center software to transform the coordinates of a DXF file from calibrated or localized project coordinates to standard state plane coordinates. In this demonstration, I'm going to be using a .cal file. This workflow will also work with a .dc, a .job, or a .jxl file. As long as that file type contains the parameters for your calibration, then this workflow will work. If you don't have any of the previously mentioned file types for your calibration parameters, that would typically mean that you're using a different manufacturer of GPS or survey equipment other than Trimble. You can still accomplish the same basic workflow, but there are some slight differences in how you would teach the software the calibration parameters for your job site. And I will be making a different tutorial video for that exact workflow, but this one is more or less for Trimble users only. So the first thing I'm going to do is open a blank Trimble Business Center project and set my units appropriately to the job units, which in this case is US survey feet. Now I'm going to bring in the .cal file and the DXF file. The cal file will set the project settings to the calibrated site coordinates. Once the file is imported, it's good to do a little bit of basic review to make sure that the DXF file is showing up on the base map where you would expect. Once you've ensured everything looks good as far as geolocation, we're going to use the CAD tab in Business Center to open the Create Point tool. We'll put the cursor in the northern text box so we can select the desired point. And essentially all we're doing here is creating two reference points on either end of the project data. Once you've created those 2 points, we'll change the coordinate system from the calibrated zone to the appropriate state plane zone, which in this case is Pennsylvania North. The TinySurveyor app references coordinate systems based on EPSG codes, and Business Center is capable of doing the same. So in this example, I will actually set the coordinate system for my project based on that EPSG code, which, like I said, corresponds to Pennsylvania North. Once you change the coordinate system, you'll notice that the 2 reference points that you made in the previous step have separated from the line work. Essentially what's happened is the points have moved to the correct spot in the state plane zone, whereas the DXF file has stayed on the old calibrated coordinates. And that difference between the two is essentially the bus that you'll have if you try to lay out the calibrated DXF with your TinySurveyor. So what I'll do is create the exact same 2 points on the line work. In this case, point 11 and point 22. Then I'll select all the members of the DXF file that I want to move to the original reference points, which, as I mentioned, are in the correct spot in the state plane zone. So we'll say we're moving from point 11 and point 22 to point 1 and point 2. Always take a look at your rotation angle and scale. It should be pretty close to 360 and 1 all the time. We'll hit apply and you'll see that the line work has moved to the original reference points that I made. And this indicates that the data is now in the correct spot in the state plane zone. The base map does not always update live in Business Center. Sometimes you have to close out of the software and reload it, which I'm not going to do in this tutorial, but just for your general reference. And then there's that difference I was talking about. So in this case, it's the state plane zone is about 3.361 feet different from the calibrated site that the customer had created for their job. So now I'll export all the members of the DXF file to a new DXF with the state plane coordinates on it. Save that to my PC. Export. And now that's the file that you would transfer to the TinySurveyor tablet for use in the field. I have a different video on the file transfer process for the TinySurveyor tablet. You can find the link to that at the end of the video. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact info was at the beginning of this video and will also be at the end. Thanks. Bye.